I want to talk about connecting your machine to your software. So when you first open up Palette, you need to go here to the little, this is actually the application icon. It opens up everything. And when this opens up, we've already seen all of this. You pretty much have seen these. But if you go down here to options, click on that. And now this is where you can actually tweak and fine tune Palette itself. So for instance, under Edit User Thread Chart, you can actually, if you choose to, select My Chart, and you can create your own thread chart with thread that you actually own by using this area right here. For instance, you just select on New Chart, give it a name. I'm just going to name it New 1. Click on OK. And now, here is the user thread chart I'm going to create. Click on this drop-down menu, and then you can go back. Say you have a lot of Madeira, you can go back with your color numbers. Say I want to add that particular Madeira rayon, add. And that one, add. Maybe I have a lot of some Floriani also, and I want to add some Floriani colors to my custom thread chart. If you change your mind on this, you can always do this and select remove, and it'll move it out of there. But if I was happy with that, I could then just click on OK, and I'm going to drag something over. Click on color. I'm going to go up here, and now I should. There's my new 1 color chart I just created. So I could actually change. Here are some of my thread. These three of the thread colors I put in. Then I could actually use thread that I currently have in my thread stash to design with. Pretty cool. Because I can tell you, if you set this, for instance, let's use the Floriani as an example. There's all your Floriani colors in the Floriani thread chart. But maybe you have some isochord, maybe you have some Madeira, maybe you have some iris and a few others. It can be a maddening dilemma to convert all these different thread colors if you're going to use multiple embroidery threads in one project. It's so much easier to just go up here to the flower icon, select options, edit thread chart, and then select the list of thread that you have in your stash. There's the isochord, and then you just highlight it and add those that you actually have in there and design off of that. I hope that made sense. Okay. So DST settings. This is something that I've never changed simply because I never use DST. For sewing, this would be very useful, of course, if you're designing something with for a long arm. Most long arm software will read DST settings. But what it does here, this is where you can adjust the trim jumps and the number of jumps is what that is. Jump stitch trimming, nothing we can add there. This is, you can turn optimize entry and exit points off and on. System unit, that's where you can select millimeters or inches. Screen calibration. So what this is telling you to do is to measure with a ruler in millimeters. Inches won't work here. The actual measurement of this blue bar and enter that number right here, and that will calibrate the actual size to your screen that way. User interface settings. This is just where you can make it look pretty. You can change the colors of it. Aqua. I'll just leave change mine to aqua, you'll see what that looks like. But most importantly, down here, network machine settings, this is where you can add your sewing machine. So all you would do is select add. I already have mine on there, but I'm just going to hit the add button again. And now it will search. And it found the Solaris. I don't have my Altair turned on. I do have the Solaris here next to me turned on. And that's why it found that. If it doesn't find your machine, you do have to have your machine turned on. And both your machine and your computer have to be connected to the same wireless network or to the same network. The machine has to connect wirelessly. Your computer can be either wireless or hardwired into your network. Okay, so I'll select that and add. There's that. And I click on OK. Now, and you can see how it changed that color. Gosh almighty, I don't like that. I can't hardly tell. That's not good with my eyesight. So I'm going to go back to user interface and set it back to silver, which was default. Okay. And click on OK. Now I can read that a little bit better. So what I've done now, since I've connected my machine to the software, right up here where it says send, I'm on the home panel. If I click on send, notice the only thing I can click on in this list is this. So I can now send it to either one of my machines. Since the Altair is not turned on, the next time if I send it to the Altair, it will now power, when I power it on, it will download it. If I send it to the Solaris, I'm just going to do that. Finished outputting data. Click on OK. And now this works the same regardless whichever machine you have connected. I'm going to take my camera. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to go over here to the Solaris. Hello. And I'm going to show you how to pull up an image that you just sent from Palette to your machine. Okay. Let's get over here. There we go. Puppy, I see you. You be good. So to pull up that embroidery design I just sent into Palette, I'm going to go to Embroidery. I'm going to go to my pocket and see the wireless icon right there. I'm going to touch that. And then what it will do, it's going to pull up everything I have sent wirelessly from Palette into this. And there is that wreath right there that I just sent over. I'm going to touch it. Notice it's on the screen. I'm going to set. Let me get rid of my ring light. There we go. And now it's in my embroidery edit file. So now I could change it, position it, do whatever I want to now that it's in my machine. On the flip side of that, what if I want to send a design that's built into the machine over to Palette? Well, we're just going to do that right now. Go back to my home screen, hit embroidery. I'm going to select one of these designs. The wolf, those are really beautiful, by the way, when they're stitched out. I'm going to hit set. Now I want to send this over to Palette. So I'm going to hit memory. And I'm going to touch the airwaves button. Okay. That's all there is to it. I just sent that to Palette. So now we're going to go back over here to Palette. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. And now that I'm in Palette, I am going to get me a new screen. And I'm going to go to import. And once I'm over here, see the word from, I want to drop down that menu and go drop down to network sewing machine. And I had the Altair selected the last time, but I want to drop that down. And of course, it's not going to respond because I don't have that on. There we go. Thank you. And okay, just asking is what it's wanting to do is have me search for the Altair, and I'm not going to do that. There we go. Now that it says Solaris right there, there is the embroidery file I just sent over from the Solaris. I'm just going to import that over into here. And there it is. Of course, that 9.5 by 9.5 hoop is not large enough for that. However, in here, I could shrink it down, or I will just go here to hoops, the design settings, and I'm going to select a larger hoop. I'm going to do the 9.5 by 14, because I think it will fit in that. Let's see. Just change that hoop size. And there we go. Now I could make it bigger. If I wanted to fill this window up, I just hold down on my control button and pull it up and let it recalculate that. And do the same down here and recalculate that. And that's how easy it is to bring a file that's built into your machine into Palette and to modify it. Maybe with this one, it makes a beautiful stitched out outline. You could actually come back in here and color all of this in if you wanted to. What I like to do with a file like this is actually stitch it out and then take fabric markers and actually color it in. It's just like a coloring book, everybody. It is so much fun to do, and you get a really beautiful effect with fabric markers. Okay, so that is pretty much, if I had a USB thumb drive stuck into my computer, I could also just send it to a USB stick. Okay. How do you tell the stitch count? So if you look right down here at the bottom of this screen, after I sized it up even, right here is the actual stitch count for what's in our design window. 55,291 stitches. And that's a good time to talk about this bar down here. So for this one, this is actual a stitch out simulator. I'm going to move that down to mid speed. So you can start, I'll go all the way to slow. Press the play button. And it's actually going to show you how this would stitch out. So that's the slowest. Let's mark it up one notch. You'll get a little bit faster. We can go a little faster than that. There's medium. There's at the 3/4 mark. Now we're getting there. But why this is useful, let's say you have a lot of steps over here and you want to see the order in which that all stitches out. Sometimes you can get, when you're creating something, you can have the sewing order over here where it's totally stitches over a previous step and you'll need to change it. This is how you can verify that before you actually take a stitch. And now if I want to just make it go really fast, we'll do that. I have stitched this one out at quilt shows. Of course, that's been over a year ago. This is beautiful. These patterns are beautiful stitched out. Just gorgeous. And that's what this does down here. Also, while we're down here, just like at the bottom of your sewing machine, you can go backwards 1, 10, or 100 stitches. And over here, you can go forward 1, 10, or 100 stitches. For instance, you can see here, it just dropped it down to 46,000 stitches. So if I wanted to go forward 100, there is a little crosshair right here, which is where the needle position is currently at. And you'll be able to see that on your own screen. It's kind of hard to see on this one because of all the black stitching here, but that's what that does, okay? So if I go up here, let's do something a little bit different to illustrate this a different way. Of course, this is one continuous stitch out, which is really great because there's no thread color changes. I like stuff like that personally. But if I go up here and I go back to Design Library, let's pull this Christmas tree back out, and we're going to make it bigger. I'm going to hold down the Control key so the stitch density is recalculated. And as you'll see over here, there's all the different steps for this stitch out. Okay. If you notice all the way down there, number 9, that's an outline of this design. Maybe you want to stitch out an outline. Maybe you have yourself, you would like to color in with fabric markers, or maybe you have some younger people at the house who would like to do that for you. I love doing that personally. It's a lot of fun. The way to separate this, because anytime you pull in one, normally you have to separate it by color before you can individually get rid of some of these steps. So we're going to go to the Stitches menu, divide by color. And now those are all separated by color. So now I can highlight over here. I'm going to hold down my left mouse button and just drag from 1 through 8 what I want to get rid of. No, I'll just do it again. And just a second. So I want to get, so I'm going to have to do it one at a time. So I'm going to double click, right click, cut. And then I double clicked after they were all highlighted. And now I should be able to do one fell swoop, cut. And now all I have left is that outline. So there is the outline that you could do a lot with even yet. So let's just select that. We're going to bring this down and make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to go back over here to the home menu. Do I want to do that? I'm thinking out loud here. I want to get those 4-way arrows and right click. And notice now I can't select a different outline stitch or anything. So what that tells me is I have to go back over here to stitches and I want to convert it to blocks. And click on OK. Because once I do that, and then I highlight it, and I right click with the 4-way arrows, I can now change the running stitch to any of these other stitches. Maybe I want a chain stitch around all of that, where all the black lines are. And now I have a chain stitch. Or maybe I want a motif stitch. And what that does is we go over here to sewing attributes and I click on the drop down menu. By that, I can pick out all of these different motif stitches to actually replace the outline with. For instance, maybe I want to use that. I just selected one at random. And there's what that would look like. It's a type of a feathering stitch. Lots of fun things you can do with that. So next, I'm going to get us a new slate. I'm going to clear everything out. And we're going to look up here at our home ribbon again, because this is the ribbon you will probably use the most. Now I want to tell you what some of these different features do here. Some we have already visited. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pull over a design. Don't care what it is. Make it bigger just so we can all see it better. There we go. In order to activate any icon that's available, you have to have the little handlebars activated, these little black boxes. But once you have something selected, there's a lot you can do with it. Here, you could copy it. What that'll do, it'll just move it to the clipboard. So in all graphic design software, there's something called a clipboard. Maybe you already know this, maybe you don't, but that's what that just did. Now, if I wanted a second one of these, all I can do is click on paste. That's what I just did. Notice I now have number 1 and number 2, and it would paste it directly on top of the previous version. If I drag one to the side, you can see I now have 2. You can also hit the duplicate key. Let's select number 1 again. And we'll go to the home screen and hit duplicate. And now when it does it, it just offsets it a little bit so it's easier to see. Oops. We're going to move that one to the side. But it moved them both. We didn't want it to do that, did we? And that's because both of them are highlighted over here. So I'm going to click into the background area of the design page. And I just want to move number 3. That was the latest duplication of it, and move it over to the side. And there's my number 1 back right there. You can see now that it's highlighted. Go to the home page. So I'm going to double click on this one. And what I'm going to do though, now I'm just going to delete. If another way to delete, of course, I can hover with my mouse. Oops, come on, you. Double click. Hover, click. I could cut it or delete it here. I could duplicate. I could copy and paste here. I could flip it either vertically or horizontally. This design, you wouldn't be able to tell. Here is a way you can resize something or rotate it. Here we could center it in the hoop, which we can also do all of those features right up here as well. And we'll get to these here in just a moment. One of the funnest features that I love in Palette is this. And I'm just going to start with a new window. So that little snowflake. So I know it's really early to start thinking of the upcoming holiday season in about 6 months. But it's a good time to get started if you like to make a lot of gifts for the holidays. One of the really cool, fun features in Palette is this thing right here called Arrange Copy. If we click on Arrange Copy, check this out. A vertical mirror creates vertical mirror copies of selected patterns. I'm going to go through each one of these. So the vertical mirror copy, for instance. Now, when I notice, before I go over there, I now have my cursor turned into this mirrored copy where it's side by side. When I bring it over here, so the original will be duplicated where this other box is that I'm moving around just by moving my cursor. So I could have them really close. I could have them super far apart. If I click once with my left mouse button, that sets it. And then I could resize them together, so forth and so on. Pretty cool, right? So I'm just going to use Control-Z and undo that. And I'm going to double click on number 1 again, go to the home screen, Arrange Copy, Horizontal, and now notice it will stack them on top and bottom. So the opposite of vertical. Pretty cool. One click with the left mouse button sets it. And there you go. Now I'm going to do a Control-Z again. Double click to select. Home tab. Arrange Copy. The 4-way mirror. Notice it's now going to create 4 of them from outwards from a center point. Very useful if it's, say you're creating maybe a quilt label and you want a certain design in each of the 4 corners. Think of it that way, for lack of a better phrase. But as you can see, all I did was tap that left click once when I had it where I wanted it, and there it is. Pretty cool. Control Z back out. Click on the Home tab, double click, Home, Arrange. I didn't want to duplicate it. Let me back out of that. There we go. Double click, Home, Arrange. And this is probably my favorite one, because a lot of times for the holidays, I like to make candle mats for my cousins and other people that I give gifts to. If you do the circle, so what happens here, notice my little icon has like a little circle with 3 images around it. So notice up here it says circle copy. There are a lot of different things that you can do right here. You can change the orientation on the vertical side of them pointing towards the center, away from the center, or every other one mixed. Here you can also change the direct. It won't matter with this one, but with some of the things like a snowman or something else, you can change the directions of them. This one will actually change from the default. You can actually set a certain number for it to repeat that pattern. For instance, I'm going to hold down my left mouse button and draw a circle and release. Now, see all those little boxes? When I rotate it, it will change the spacing almost to where they overlap, but I really wouldn't want those to overlap. Maybe just barely touch. When I get it where I want it, I'm going to tap the left mouse button 1 time and watch what happens. There's the magic. And now I want to center that in my hoop. Oops, didn't really want to do it that way though, did I? So I'm going to do that undo button. There we go. And now what you would want to do is group this so it's 1 unit. So an easy way to do it is right up here under the Home tab and Edit, Group, Group. Now when we go and hit Arrange, it'll move the entire thing to the center. It's a little bit too big for this hoop. So what I could do is hold down my Control key and shrink it in a little bit. Now, if I go up to Arrange and hit Center, that will fit in that hoop that I currently have selected. There's a lot of ways to play with that.